The little girl stood alone in the middle of one of the busiest airports in the country, clutching a worn-out stuffed rabbit with tears streaming down her face. Thousands of travelers rushed past her without slowing down, too busy chasing flights, meetings, and dreams to notice the frightened child. But one exhausted, poorly dressed single father carrying a faded backpack and holding his own son's tiny hand stopped without thinking twice. He had barely enough money to buy dinner that night, yet he chose compassion over convenience. Minutes later, when airport security finally found the girl's mother, the wealthy billionaire looked into the poor man's tired face, froze completely, and whispered his name as if she had just seen a ghost from the past. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Grandma's Book 2.0. Every small act of support helps stories like this reach more hearts around the world. David Carter never imagined that a single decision made during an ordinary afternoon would completely rewrite the future he had struggled so hard to protect. Every morning before sunrise, he woke inside a tiny apartment where the ceiling leaked during heavy rain and the furniture had been repaired so many times that nothing matched anymore. His greatest treasure was not the apartment or the old pickup truck that barely started every winter. It was his 7-year-old son, Noah, whose bright smile somehow made every hardship seem bearable. Ever since David's wife passed away after a sudden illness 4 years earlier, he had carried the impossible responsibility of being both mother and father. He worked long hours loading cargo, cleaned offices during the evenings whenever extra shifts became available, and still found enough energy to help Noah with homework before bedtime. Although life constantly tested him, David refused to let bitterness become part of his son's childhood. That particular day, David had traveled to the airport hoping to meet a contractor who had promised him temporary construction work in another city. It was an opportunity that could finally allow him to pay overdue rent and replace Noah's broken winter coat before the cold season arrived. Unfortunately, the contractor canceled the meeting moments before landing, leaving David disappointed but determined not to waste the expensive train ticket he had purchased. As he prepared to leave the terminal with Noah beside him, a sound unlike all the surrounding airport noise reached his ears. It was the unmistakable cry of a terrified child. Standing near a row of empty seats was a little girl no older than 5. Her expensive clothes and polished shoes suggested she came from a wealthy family, yet none of those things could hide the fear in her trembling hands. She kept looking around desperately, while hugging her stuffed rabbit so tightly that its ears were bent. Travelers walked around her, as though she were invisible. Some glanced for a second before continuing toward departure gates. Others assumed someone else would help. David could not walk away. He gently approached the frightened child while Noah stood quietly beside him, offering the little girl his own bottle of water without hesitation. Together, father and son slowly helped calm her enough for her to whisper that she had become separated from her mother after following the wrong crowd through the terminal. David immediately contacted airport security instead of trying to solve the situation himself. While waiting for officers to arrive, he remained with the little girl, making sure she felt safe and reminding her that her mother would never stop searching for her. Noah sat beside her and showed her funny animal drawings from his notebook until tiny smiles began replacing frightened tears. Security cameras were reviewed, announcements echoed throughout the airport, and employees searched every section of the terminal. Nearly half an hour later, a convoy of security officers appeared, followed by a woman whose face revealed absolute panic. She was dressed elegantly, surrounded by assistants, and clearly accustomed to living in a world where problems disappeared with a phone call. Yet in that moment, she looked like nothing more than a terrified mother racing toward her child. As soon as she saw the little girl, she dropped every appearance of wealth and status, falling to her knees as she wrapped her daughter in the tightest embrace imaginable. Tears of relief poured down both their faces. The airport grew strangely quiet as everyone nearby watched the emotional reunion unfold. When the woman finally looked up to thank the stranger who had stayed with her daughter, her expression suddenly changed. Gratitude became disbelief. Her eyes remained fixed on David's face. She slowly stood, taking one uncertain step closer before quietly saying his name. David. He looked equally confused. Although the years had changed both of them, recognition slowly returned. The billionaire standing before him was Emily Lawson, the same young woman he had loved deeply more than 20 years earlier. They had met as college students when neither of them possessed wealth or influence. Back then, Emily dreamed of creating a technology company that would improve people's lives, while David planned to become an engineer. They had imagined building a simple future together. But life had separated them after Emily's powerful family forced her overseas to join the family business, believing David's modest background made him unworthy of their daughter. Letters stopped arriving. Phone numbers changed. Time quietly buried their shared memories beneath responsibilities neither of them had chosen. Emily eventually inherited one of the world's fastest-growing technology companies after her father's passing. Newspapers celebrated her business success, her investments, and her billion-dollar fortune. Yet no magazine ever reported the loneliness hidden behind her achievements. She had lost her husband several years earlier in a tragic accident, leaving her to raise her daughter, Lily, while managing an empire that demanded every waking hour. Despite unimaginable wealth, she often felt emotionally bankrupt, wondering whether success had cost her the life she once dreamed of living. David, meanwhile, never blamed Emily for the past. He simply accepted that some stories ended before they reached their happiest chapters. Standing in the airport, he felt no resentment. He only felt relieved that Lily was safe. When Emily thanked him repeatedly and offered a generous financial reward, David politely refused. He explained that helping a frightened child should never carry a price. Kindness, he believed, lost its meaning the moment someone expected payment. Those words stayed with Emily long after they left the airport. She could not stop thinking about the man who had chosen compassion despite having so little himself. Curious about the life David had built, she quietly asked her assistant to learn more about him. What she discovered deeply humbled her. David had accumulated medical debt after his wife's illness. He had worked multiple exhausting jobs without complaint. Teachers described Noah as one of the kindest children in school despite wearing patched clothes and using secondhand books. Neighbors spoke of David helping elderly residents fix broken fences or carry groceries without ever accepting money. Everywhere Emily looked, she found evidence of quiet generosity hidden beneath financial hardship. Instead of sending a donation, Emily visited David personally several weeks later. She asked if he would consider joining her company as the head of a new community engineering initiative focused on affordable housing and public infrastructure. She explained that his technical knowledge, honesty, and leadership were exactly what the project needed. David hesitated, fearing he lacked the polished experience required for such an important role. Emily reminded him that integrity could never be taught in business schools. It was earned through the choices people made when nobody was watching. The opportunity transformed David's life, but not because of the salary. For the first time since losing his wife, he felt his work truly mattered. His ideas improved neighborhoods that had long been ignored. Affordable housing projects expanded. Safe playgrounds replaced abandoned lots. Schools received better facilities. Employees respected him because he understood the struggles ordinary families faced. Noah watched his father slowly rediscover hope, and the confidence growing inside the young boy became one of the greatest rewards David had ever received. As the months passed, Emily and David rebuilt a friendship rooted not in the dreams of their youth, but in mutual respect, shared loss, and a desire to help others. Their children became close friends, proving that compassion often creates stronger bonds than wealth ever could. Emily realized that the richest investment she had ever made was not in technology or business, but in trusting someone whose heart had never changed despite years of hardship. David often reflected on that unforgettable afternoon at the airport. Had he ignored the crying child like everyone else, he would have walked away believing it was simply another disappointing day. Instead, one small act of kindness became the turning point that changed countless lives. It reminded everyone involved that destiny sometimes hides inside the smallest decisions, waiting for ordinary people to choose compassion over convenience. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Grandma's Book 2.0. Your support allows more inspiring stories of hope, kindness, and second chances to reach people who may need them the most. Special request asterisk before this story ends, please comment with the words, "Kindness always finds its way back." We'd love to know where you're watching from, too. The greatest miracles rarely begin with wealth, fame, or power. They begin when one ordinary person notices someone everyone else has forgotten. David never became a hero because he was rich or influential. He became unforgettable because he stopped walking when everyone else kept moving. His compassion reunited a frightened little girl with her mother, healed wounds that had remained open for decades, and proved that true character is measured not by what we own, but by what we willingly give to others. In a world constantly rushing toward the next destination, may we all remember that sometimes the most important journey begins with simply stopping to help someone in need.